The Battle of Yavin is remembered as one of the most pivotal military engagements in galactic history, and arguably the most impressive victory accomplished by a numerically and technologically inferior force since the dawn of space warfare, taking place only 2 years after the formal declaration of conflict between the Galactic Empire and the Alliance to restore the Republic. The Battle of Yavin represented the conclusion of Operation Skyhook, a complex pan-galactic alliance strategy intended to result in the capture of the Death Star plans and ultimately the destruction of the Imperial superweapon. Having acquired the technical readouts for the Death Star, the Alliance began to formulate a plan for attacking the battle station, but with the location of Yavin Base now in the hands of the Empire, it was only a matter of time before the Death Star arrived in system and began to target the planet. Having identified a critical weak spot in the Death Star's design, a small thermal exhaust port, General Jan de Donner and his staff assembled a battle plan based around the exploitation of this crucial vulnerability. At the time of the battle, the Rebel Alliance garrison on Yavin 4 had 32 starfighters at their disposal, divided into 2 squadrons. The first of these squadrons was a 12-ship T-65 X-Wing flight, designated Red Squadron, and the second, a 7-ship BTL Y-Wing bomber flight, designated Gold Squadron. Among these 2 squadrons were some of the finest pilots ever to serve in the Rebel Alliance, including Dutch Vander, Wedge Antilles, Yavin Dryce, and Kian Farlander. With the path to their target obscured by the gas giant Yavin Prime, the Imperials were forced to maneuver the Death Star into a more optimal firing position before destroying the Rebel base. This gave the Alliance the time they needed to perform their starfighter attack, and the pilots of Red and Gold squadrons were dispatched to intercept the approaching battle station. In the opening moments of the battle, Yavin Dryce and his Red Squadron performed a coordinated attack on several turbolaser positions surrounding the Polar Trench. This attack was intended mostly to draw fire away from Dutch Vander's Gold Squadron as they piloted their slower and more vulnerable bombers towards the Death Star's surface, where they would begin the first trench run. During this attack, the Death Star began to deploy TIE fighters to engage the Rebel attackers, and through a combination of intense ground fire and starfighter attack, the Imperials successfully eliminated a large portion of Red Squadron. Though they had suffered heavy casualties, Red Squadron's attack had distracted the Imperial turbo laser batteries long enough to allow 3 members of Gold Squadron to enter the trench, and Gold Leader began to guide his wingmen toward the exhaust port. In response to this, the Imperials sortied the elite Black Squadron, helmed by the Sith Lord Darth Vader and comprised of some of the Imperial Navy's finest pilots. Black Squadron quickly reached the trench and began to pursue the bombers, and though the Rebel pilots came close to reaching their target, the slower and bulkier Y-Wings proved unable to evade Black Squadron's attacks, and Dutch Vander and his 2 wingmen were quickly shot down. With a large portion of his forces destroyed, Mission Commander Yavin Dryce elected to divide what remained of Red Squadron into 2 flights, one helmed by himself, and the other left under the command of Luke Skywalker, a newly recruited member of the Alliance. Taking his 2 wingmen into the trench, Dryce attempted a second run against the target, this time closing to firing range and launching a pair of torpedoes toward the exhaust port. Unfortunately, Dryce missed the target shaft by meters, damaging the surface of the port, but failing to hit the target directly. Now left exposed after leaving the trench, Red Leader was targeted by Darth Vader and quickly eliminated. Forced to take command of all remaining Rebel forces, Luke Skywalker, callsign Red 5, led his 2 wingmen Wedge Antilles and Biggs Darklighter into a third and final trench run. Altering his tactics from Red Leader's previous run, Skywalker ordered his flight to approach the target at full throttle, hoping to outrun the pilots of Black Squadron. But in spite of the T-65's exceptional performance, the pursuing TIEs managed to stay inside firing range, forcing Antilles and Darklighter to draw their fire away from their flight leader. As what remained of Red Squadron approached the target, Antilles' X-Wing took a crippling blast to its portside engines, and Skywalker ordered the pilot to retreat from the engagement zone, joining Kian Farlander, who had previously withdrawn from the battle. Though Antilles survived his encounter with Darth Vader, the same could not be said for Biggs Darklighter, who was tragically killed, drawing fire away from his friend and flight leader, Luke Skywalker, mere moments after Antilles' departure. With the entirety of the Rebel attack group now destroyed or routed, only Luke Skywalker remained to complete the mission. As he prepared to launch his torpedo strike against the exhaust port, Vader successfully acquired a target lock on Skywalker's X-Wing, but the Sith Lord was interrupted by an unexpected attack from above. Arriving to assist Skywalker in his attack, the smuggler Han Solo fired a volley of quad turbo laser fire into the tightly packed Black Squadron, destroying 2 fighters and disabling Vader's personal craft. With the trench now clear of of hostile forces, Luke Skywalker launched his torpedoes, striking the exhaust port with perfect accuracy, and began to pull away from the station. Mere seconds after Solo, Skywalker, Antilles and Farlander reached a safe distance, the Death Star's reactor overloaded, completely obliterating the station. The Battle of Yavin is considered one of the most significant military actions in galactic history, and its impact was so great that 25 years later, the New Republic Historical Council began to use the battle as the 0 point of a new galactic calendar. Those pilots who died during the attack were considered some of the greatest heroes of the Galactic Civil War, and each were posthumously awarded the Calidor Crescent and a memorialized assignment to the newly formed Rogue Squadron for their bravery and skill. For the Imperials, the battle proved to be a blow from which the Empire would never truly recover. Having lost the station into which years of resources and trillions of credits had been poured, and with their military publicly humiliated by the defeat, the Empire began to face an increasingly well-supported rebel alliance, beginning to turn the tables of the entire Galactic Civil War.